Hello and welcome everyone to my second installment of HTML training. In the previous session, we covered introduction, wherein we learned why HTML is so famous, what is HTML, and then we welcomed HTML into our lives. We learned how to write HTML code, and then finally I took up a lab session wherein I showed you how to write a HTML code and run it. So now let's look at topic number 2. Here we'll look at what are tags. First of all, we'll refresh our memory of HTML tags, and then I'll take up what are HTML basic tags. Then we'll dive a bit deeper into the text. We'll learn about text tags, and then finally I'll take up a lab session wherein I'll show you how to use these tags in your code and how to run it. Alright, so HTML tags define how a web browser formats and displays the content. So HTML tags are nothing but annotations which you use to create your HTML page, and you put the content between those annotations. There are different HTML tags or different annotations available used to display the content in different ways. Now HTML tags mainly include three parts. So we have an opening tag and a closing tag, and the content goes between those two tags. A web browser can distinguish between an HTML content and a simple content using tags. So while rendering the content, whenever the web browser encounters a tag, it omits the tag. It doesn't display the tag on the web page, but it displays the content which is between those opening and closing tags. And the tags dictate the way in which this content is to be displayed on the web page. Now the HTML tags are enclosed within angular brackets. So anything which is in angular brackets is a tag, and it is omitted by the web browser. And anything which is not there within the angular brackets is the content which is supposed to be displayed on the web page. Now the HTML tags always come in pairs. For example, p within angular brackets and /p. The opening tag or the starting tag here is p, and the ending tag or the closing tag here is /p. Always remember that the ending tag has a slash in front of it, and don't forget that you should always put this in pairs. If you forget to add a pair, for example, if you have a starting tag p, but if you forget to put a /p, the entire content in the web page would be displayed as a paragraph until the web browser encounters a /p. Now let's look at some HTML basic tags. The first basic HTML tag is a doc type declaration. All your HTML documents should begin with a doc type declaration. Doc type declaration suggests to the web browser that this is an HTML document, and it is supposed to be rendered using the latest HTML specification. So the latest HTML version or the specification is HTML5. If you forget to add a doc type declaration, the web browser would still display your document, but some of the legacy versions of your web browser might not be able to display it correctly, or they might not be able to use the latest features of HTML5. So the syntax is exclamation mark and then doc type and then space HTML. One thing to note here is doc type declaration is not case sensitive. Now let's look at the HTML basic tag. So HTML represents the root element of a HTML page or a document. So all your HTML pages should have a HTML tag, and everything else goes inside this HTML tag except the doc type declaration. So HTML tag is the container of all the other elements, as I mentioned, except for the doc type declaration. So here we have an example code. Now if you look at this code here, we have HTML space lang equals en. So it is recommended to use the lang attribute inside the HTML tag. It declares the language of your web page and helps in assisting various search engines and browsers. For example, if there's a search engine which is looking for GNOSIS somewhere on the internet, and it is putting GNOSIS in the English language, basically it will look for all the HTML documents which have specified HTML lang equals en. It will search for all such HTML documents, and inside them it will search for the keyword GNOSIS. Instead of en, if you put some other language, the search engine might not be able to discover your document. So if you want search engines and other third-party applications to be able to discover your document in English language, you can put an English language. If you want them to discover it in some other language, you might put some other language here as well. Now let's look at some other basic tags like head, title, and body. So head is the first element inside your HTML root element, and the second element after head is body. So head, as the name suggests, is a header. The head tag is a container for the meta information or extra information about your HTML document. This information is used by the browser. It is not displayed on the web page as a content. For example, if we look at the title element which goes inside the head element, title represents the title of the web page or the document. It is displayed in the browser's title bar or the pages tab, but it is not displayed as part of the content. So this is an example of a header. So the head tag might contain several other information apart from the title. Also, one thing to note here is that you can have only one head inside HTML, and you can have only one title inside your head. You might try and add more titles and more heads. The browser might still render it, but it is not a good practice. Now, after the head element, we have the body element. So the body element or the body tag is the main content section of the document. It contains all the contents of a HTML document which you see on the web page. For example, the headings, paragraphs, images, links, tables, lists, everything that you want to be shown on the web page goes inside the body. So do not put your content outside the body. Put everything inside the body. Now let's look at the HTML text tags. The first text tag we have here is the P tag. So P represents paragraph. As you can see in the sample code here, inside the body we have a P. P says this is a sample paragraph, and as you can see in the output, this is what the output looks like. Now let's look at H tag. H stands for heading. Heading is nothing but something which you want to stand out, something which is bolded and larger. So we have H1 to H6 tags which represent headings from level 1 to level 6. So H1 defines the largest or the most important heading, and H6 defines the smallest or the least important heading. Let's look at an example. For example, you are creating your first online novel, and now this novel has several chapters and it has several paragraphs, right? So you want the heading or the name of the novel to appear in the biggest font, and then you want a smaller font which displays the chapter. For example, here in the code, the name of the novel is H1 tag, my first novel. So this is the largest font. After that, we have the first chapter, which is a bit smaller font, and then we have the name of the first para, which is again a smaller font, and then we have a P tag, which displays the paragraph or which displays the content of the first paragraph. Similarly, we have chapter 2 as a H2 tag, and then inside the chapter 2 we have a para 2 tag. So I'll show you the what it looks like when we take up the lab session. For now, just understand that this is how we use the tags based on the importance level for heading. Now let's look at the div tag. So the div tag represents a division or a section in an HTML document. Many HTML elements can be placed in one block using the div tag, and the style for the entire block can be specified using the style attribute in the div tag. So a general thumb rule would be that if you don't know which tag to use, it almost always is a div tag. Div tag is the most widely used tag. For example, if you want to display a couple of elements in a specific section, for example, you want a table and beside the table you want a graph, and you don't know what section to put it in, always put it in a div tag. So you will have a div starting tag, inside it you will have a table and a graph, and then you will have a div ending tag. For example, you have some dynamic data coming up from server, right? So when you display your web page, it will be empty, and then you want the server data to be displayed on a specific section of your web page. What would that section be? It will most likely be a div tag. So you can add an empty div tag, for example div/div. Once you retrieve the data from the server, you can display it on the div using some JavaScript or some other including function. Also, one of the advantages of div is if you want a specific section of your web page to have a particular style. For example, if you want a particular section which contains headings and paragraphs, and you want all of these headings and paragraphs to have a different background image or a different background color. Put all of this inside a div tag and then apply this background image or a background color to the div, and automatically all the children elements inside this div will inherit that background image or background color. So now let's look at an example of a div tag. So in the below example, you can see that the H2 and P, which is paragraph, are placed under the div tag and are given a common style. So if you look at the div code here, we have a div starting tag, and then we have a style equals border, something like that. So what is style? This is nothing but cascading style sheet, and here we are applying this style directly to the div tag. So it is called inline style sheet. There are other ways of applying style. You can place this style code inside an external .css file that is called an external style sheet. But here we are directly applying the style here inside this tag, and it is called inline style. Now, what is the syntax of applying the style? If you want to apply a style to an element, for example, here we are applying the style to the div. So we say div space style equals, and then we start applying the style within the double inverted comma. Now, within the double inverted comma, the syntax of applying the style is you give the style name and then colon and the style property. For example, we want to apply a border, so we say border colon, and then we start applying the properties of what kind of border do we want. So we want a 3 pixel wide border, so we say 3px. We want the color of this border to be red, so we specify red. Now we want to apply another style, so we end the first style with a semicolon, and then we apply the second style. Second style name is background color, right? So the syntax for to apply background color style is background hyphen color. So we specify background hyphen color, and then we put a colon, and then we start specifying what kind of color do we want. So we want a light green color, semicolon, and then we apply another style, text hyphen align. So this says how your text within the div should be aligned. We want it to be center aligned, so we specify center. Now we end this angular bracket for the starting tag of the div, and then we specify the H2 and the P tag, and then we end the div. And after the div, we have another paragraph element. So if you run this code, you will see that the H2 and the P elements which are inside the div, both will have a red border with a light green background color, whereas the paragraph outside the div will be a normal paragraph. Let's see what this code looks like. Here, as you can see, the output. We have the heading 1 and the first paragraph inside a red border and a green background, whereas the paragraph outside the div is a normal paragraph. So this is one of the advantages of div. You can put multiple elements inside the div, you can group them up, and then you can apply a style to that group of elements. Now let's look at a span tag. So now let's look at the span tag. The span tag is an inline container which is used to specify the style for part of the text to be displayed. Let's understand this with the help of an example. Here in this code, we have a P element. In the P element, I have written roses are, then we have a span tag and then red, and violets are, and then we have a span tag and the end of span tag. So basically, what I'm trying to say here is that roses are red. I want to highlight the red color as the red, and violets are blue. I want to highlight the blue color as blue. So when you have such requirement of highlighting a small part of text or some word, you can use a span tag. So for example, if you have got a huge paragraph, you want to highlight some part of the paragraph, you might not want to end the paragraph and then add another paragraph with a style for the highlighted element. Instead of that, use span for a quick highlighting of a small part of the text. So that's a thumb rule. When to use a span? When you want to highlight a small part of the text, that's when you use the span. So we'll look at what the spans look like in the lab session, but for now I'm just showing you how to write the code. So now let's look at the BR tag. BR stands for break. So if you want to insert a line break, you can use the BR tag. BR tag is also known as an empty tag because it doesn't come in pair, it doesn't have an AND tag. So this is one such exception which doesn't come in pair. All you need to do is add a BR tag. You don't need a slash BR, and a line break would be added. So let's look at an example. Here, as you can see, we have address slash address tag, and inside this we have the address and we have BR tag. So what is address? The address tag represents the contact or personal information. So if you have an address card or some contact information in your web page, and if you don't want to apply a separate style to it, you can use a address tag. You can put the contact information inside the address tag, and it will display it in an address kind of a format. So it will be a quick automatic formatting for you. Inside this address tag, we have used written by GNOSIS BR. So after the BR, automatically visit us would appear in the next line, so on and so forth. So I'll take up this piece of code also in the lab session and show you what it looks like when we run this piece of code. So below are some other HTML text tags for your reference. ABBR, it represents an abbreviation or an acronym, for example HTML, CSS, etc. So if you are creating a web page and if you want to display an abbreviation and you want it to look a bit different, then put it within ABBR tags. INS represents the text that has been inserted into your HTML document. DEL represents the text that has been deleted from the HTML document. For example, if you look at Wikipedia, some old information might have been deleted. If you want to show the user that this information is deleted or it's no more relevant, you can put it in DEL tag. Pre represents a pre-formatted text in a HTML document. HR applies thematic or sectional break between paragraph level elements. DL defines a description list. So this is basically a list. If you want to, for example, in the Word document, you can see a list or bullet points. So if you want to create a list, DL is the tag for you. DT defines a term or name in the description list. DD provides a description of a term or name in the description list. So these are all used while creating a description list. We'll have a look at this thing in the lab session. S renders text that is no longer correct or relevant. DFN specifies a term that is going to be defined within a sentence. So basically it's a definition. Block quote represents a section that is quoted from another source. So now let's take up a lab session wherein we'll try and use all the previously discussed tags and see what they look like when we run the code. So if you guys remember, in the last lab session I had used Notepad++ to give you the demo of HTML code. At the same time, I had also mentioned about some advanced IDEs or integrated development environments which can be used for writing your HTML code and running it. And these IDEs give you some additional features like design time preview, as in while you're writing the code you can see the design of your code. They give you a content assist, so they help you in determining the text from the internal libraries. They give you the list of tags you can choose from them. They give you content completion, so while you're writing the tag it automatically completes it for you and it automatically ends the closing tag for you. And there are some other features which this advanced IDs provide to you. Some of them are Eclipse and Visual Studio. So what I have here in front of me is an Eclipse ID. You can download it from eclipse.org. It has got several versions. You can download any one of those versions and you'll be able to do HTML development. or if you want, you can download the latest version. I am using a very old version of Eclipse, and it's just serving my purpose just right. So you will also be able to do Java and J2EE development in your Eclipse. So it's like a one-stop shop for your entire web project development. So once you download Eclipse, this is what it will show you. No perspectives are open. To open a perspective, press this button. So perspective is nothing but it's an editor where you will be able to see all your projects. You will be able to open up a file or inside the project, and you will be able to see and run the code. So let me show you how to do it. In order to open a perspective, you can either click on the open perspective button, or in the Windows menu item above, you can click on open perspective other. And here there are several different perspectives available. For example, for Java development, you can use a Java perspective. For J2EE development, you can use a Java EE perspective. For JavaScript development, you can use a JavaScript perspective. For the purpose of this demo, I am going to use a web perspective, because in this perspective I'll be able to show you the design time preview mode as well. So let me click on OK. So this is my perspective. If you can see on the left hand side, this is the project explorer. It shows all the projects which I have created so far, and I can click on any project and open up a file, and the file content or the code will open up here in the center of my perspective. On the right hand side, I'll be able to see the outline of the code. So I'll be able to see the different functions and basically a structure of the code. And down below here, I'll be able to see problems like errors or compilation errors. So let me quickly create a new project. Just right click here on the project explorer section, click on new, and then project. So there are different kinds of project which you can create. You can create a general project, you can create a Java project, you can create a JavaScript project. For the purpose of this demo, I'll create a static web project. Web project is nothing but it will have a front end as well as a server side. So you can create an entire web project with HTML, CSS on the front end side and with a Java server side code. For the purpose of this demo, we are just creating an HTML. So I won't create a dynamic web project. I'll just create a static web project. So let me click on next here. It will ask for a project name. Let's give it a name, GNOSIS IT Training. And then I'll click, I'll leave the other things as they are default. I'll click on next, and I'll click on finish. So if you can see on the left hand side, I can see my project has come up, and it has created a web content folder here. Now inside this, I'll create a HTML file. So you can right click it, click on new, and then HTML file. I'll just click on HTML file. It asks me for a name. Let me name it HTML tags. Click on next. You can select the HTML specification or the version which you want. So I'll select the latest one, which is HTML5. And as you can see below, it is giving me a preview. So here it has already created a boilerplate code for me. So I don't have to start from fresh. I'll just click on finish. As you can see in the center, it is showing me up the boilerplate code. You can also quickly create a HTML page from here. On the top, it gives a plus button, and you can quickly create it from here as well. So if you look at the boilerplate code here, I already have the doc type declaration here. I have the root element HTML, and when I click on it, it shows me the corresponding pair of it, starting and the ending tag. So it is very easy or very convenient for me to see the structure and to check if I have missed out anything. Similarly for head, you can see that there's a head, and inside head we have got a meta character set. This is the encoding, ISO encoding, and then I have a title here. The name of the title here is insert title here. So let's insert the title here. Let's call it GNOSIS, and then I have the body element. This is the boilerplate code. Now I was talking about the design time preview, what this would look like in the design time, right? So it gives that to you as well. For that, all that you need to do is right click your file here. So we created a file under web content, HTML tags.html, right? I'll right click that file and I'll click on open with.
and there's something called web page editor, right? The current editor which is open is HTML editor. You can have a text editor. You got different types of editors here. When we click on web page editor, it gives you a design time preview. So if you can see on the top section here, we have the design, what this will look like, and below we have the code. Now as you change the code, the real-time design preview will change. Also you can see here drag and drop web page content here, right? So it has got a palette here. You can hide and show the palette by clicking on arrow button here. So here in the palette you can select some basic elements. You can just drag and drop them here in the design section, and it automatically writes the code for you. So let me drag and drop a div and show you. I'll drag the div here, and if you can see, the code for div has automatically been added here. This is a very convenient feature which can quickly bootstrap your development. You can quickly start your development. Now let me add some content to the div to show you how the design time preview updates dynamically. As you can see, whatever I am writing in the div section, it automatically appears up there in the design time preview, right? This is a very useful feature here. Now let's see what this looks like when you actually run it inside a browser. So as I mentioned, this IDE gives you a feature. You can directly run the code from in here. You can run it from an internal browser. So a browser would open up right here as a tab inside your IDE itself, or you can run it on an external browser like a Chrome or an Internet Explorer. In order to select a browser, you need to click on the Windows button here above, click on web browser, and here you can select which browser you want to run your code in. So for the purpose of this demo, I have selected internal web browser. Now if I want to run this code in the internal web browser, I'll right click my file, and then I'll click open with, and then I'll select a web browser. So it will run your code in the selected web browser. I had selected internal, so it opened up a tab here, and it is running it right within the internal web browser here. So this is a very convenient feature. You can make changes to your HTML file right here. For example, I'll make some changes to the div. This is what the design would look like. Let me save it, and now let me look at the actual web page. Just refresh it here or click on the run button here, and you'll be able to see the changes, right? So now let me add some elements inside this div. In the slide I had shown you an example wherein I had created a novel kind of a structure to depict the use of headings. So let's create a novel. So let's add a h1 tag. Now I'll show you content assist. So here, if I want to add a h1 tag, I don't have to search for the tag name, entire tag name. All that I need to do is type h here, and then press control space. Control space brings up the content assist. So this Eclipse IDE has its own internal library from which it pulls out the different content which is available, right? So when I press on control space, it opens up all the different tags which are available with HTML5. So I want a h1 tag, so I'll click on h1. Rather, I'll click on control space and I'll click on h, and then it shows me up h1. I can either press on enter, or I can double click this h1 item. As you can see, it automatically added the starting and ending tags for you. So this is a very convenient and quick coding thing for you. Let me enter the name of my novel. Let's say my novel's name is My First Novel. So you can see in the design tab preview quickly. You don't even have to save this file and run it in a browser. You can directly see what it will look like. You'll get an idea of your web page during design time. And if you remember, I had mentioned that it is very important that before you start coding, you need to start designing, right? So here it is, automatically showing the design to you. So if you want to make changes, you can make changes while you are coding, and then later on run it in the web browser. Now let me add my first chapter here. So now I want H2, so I'll press H2 and then click on enter. It automatically ended the tag for me, chapter 1. So now let me add a paragraph here. Let's see what it will look like. Let's refresh the screen here, and I can see it as my first para. Now let's try and add some style to my div. So I'll type style and then sty and press control space, and it'll bring up style content assist. Let me double click it and it auto completes it for me. Now let's say I want to add a border to my div, so I'll say BOR and then press control space. It brought up border for me. I'll double click it, it auto completes for me. Now I want to, let's say, keep a 3 pixel border of outset type, and let's say color red. You can see that it automatically appears in the design time preview. If I don't like the color red, I can change it to black and it again shows up. Let me add another style. Let's say I want to add a background color. Let me type B and press control space. It brings up all the different options starting from B. I'll keep typing and now it is showing me B option starting with BA. I've got background color here. I'll double click it. Let's say I want to make the background color as red. Doesn't look good. Let's see if we have something from S, control space, it's got silver. Yeah, this one looks much better. So if you can see, all the elements which is H1, my first novel, H2, chapter 1 and paragraph, they all have the background color as gray, right? They are all inside this border. So whatever style you apply to the div gets applied to the content within the div. Let's see what it looks like on the screen. When I refresh it, this is what it looks like. It looks a bit different and it looks a bit more elegant. So this is how you create and then beautify your HTML pages using the style. Now let's add a paragraph outside this div and see if the styles which we applied to the div get applied to the paragraph. If you can see in the design time preview, the style is not applied. Now let's say I want to make the red text here in red color. So as we discussed in the slide, we can apply a span. We can use a span tag to apply styles to it. So first of all, we need to embed this red element inside the span tag. So let's surround it with span tag. So when the browser is parsing this HTML page and it encounters the span tag, so whatever is there between the span tag, here it is red, it will apply span tag. Now if we add any styles to the span tag, those styles would be applied to the content which is inside the span tag. So let's say we want to make the color red for this text. So we'll apply a style. Let's add a style. And then we want the color, so let's bring up color and we want it to be red. So you can see in the design time preview the color has changed to the red. Now for the word blue, we want it to be blue. So first of all, let's surround it with a span tag and then change the color to blue. You see the color has changed. Let's see what it looks like in the real time. This is what it looks like. So I've showed you so far the basic HTML tags like HTML root element, head, body, title, and then I've also showed you some text tags like div, headings, paragraphs, and span. Now let's cover some other tags we looked at an address tag in our slides. So let me show you an address tag. Then control space. I'll double click on the address here. Let's put the address inside and see what it looks like. GNOSIS IT. If you can see in the design time preview above, it shows it in italics. And then I want to put let's say the location and India. You can see it's all coming up in one line, but we want it to appear in different lines. For that, we'll add the break tag BR. You can see if you hover over BR, it gives you the documentation as well, right? It brings up the documentation for this from its own internal library, which is also a useful feature. Here it says forces a line break. So let's add the BR tag here, and it forces a line break. You can see it put the second line in second item in the second line. Let's add another break here and see what it looks like. Now let's see what it looks like in the real time. So this is the address. So this is how you can add the address. It does a quick formatting for you. Basically, it makes it italics, so you don't have to add styles to it. Now let's look at some other text tags. For example, if you want to add a horizontal line or a horizontal ruler to separate the sections, right? So for example, let me show it to you. After the div, I want to separate the div section. So I'll put a horizontal line here. Let me bring up content assist and put HR. If you see, the documentation on the right hand side shows a horizontal rule. Let's add this and save it. Refresh the screen. As you can see, that's a horizontal line which has been added. It's a neat way to separate sections. Now there are some other text tags as well. For example, if there's a text which is deleted, for example, you're creating a content and there was a previous text or an obsolete text which has been deleted now, and you want to specify to the user that this is obsolete, you can put it inside delete del tag, right? So you can see this has been. So you can see this. It underlines it, right? Similarly, if you inserted some text, some new text, and you want to show it to the user that this has been inserted, basically you want to underline it. So that you can use inserted. This has been inserted, and it shows it as an underline. Let's see what these two tags look like in real time. So the deleted tag has been cross marked, and the inserted text has been underlined. Similarly, we have a S tag, which is similar to deleted tag, but it is obsolete. If I put it here, if you hover over it, the IDE gives you this warning that this element is obsolete. Its use is discouraged. So this is a very useful feature. At the coding time itself, your IDE helps you with such warnings. So I'll remove it from here. Let's look at yet another interesting tag called DL. So let me bring up content assist and DL. So if you can see, the documentation says it's a definition or a description list. So when you want to define some items, you use DL. For example, you have a list of items like HTML, CSS, and you want to put a heading HTML, and then below the heading you want to specify its definition. So if you want to create such a list of definitions, that's when you use DL. So if you see here in the content assist, we have a hashtag DL. When you click on it, on the right hand side, it populates the documentation. So this is what it will look like when you add it to the document. So basically DL never comes on its own. It comes with DT items inside it, DT and DD items. Here this content assist is automatically creating this boilerplate code for you so that you don't have to write it, which is a very useful feature. Let me add it to my HTML. As you can see, it put this code for me. I just need to change the content. For example, so DL here stands for definition list, which is the parent. Inside the definition list, we have DT and DD. So DT is the definition term, basically the term for which you want to put the definition. So let's say HTML, I want to define HTML, and then DD is the definition description. So this is the actual definition. So let's say the definition of HTML is hypertext markup language. Similarly, there's a second definition term is CSS, and its definition, though I'm using abbreviations here, but the definition could be something else like cascading style sheet is used for adding styles to your HTML. This is the definition of CSS, right? Let's see what it looks like in your web page. If you can see, it has indented the definition and it's easy to look at. So if you have many such items, you can directly put them in the DL, description list, and the browser automatically renders it in this format. Found this lab session interesting, and I hope you are excited enough to go ahead with your own hands-on practice session. So happy coding till we meet again. Goodbye.